As ALA President tonight, I invite you to join me in a journey. Route 66 is the theme for my journey because it passes through many states, including New Mexico, where my family is originally from. It's also important because the route takes us from Chicago to LA. And that symbolizes the whole trip. I want you to join me on this trip from Chicago to LA, library advocacy. On this trip, we are also leaving to another LA, and that's literacy advocacy. You bet. There are different levels of library advocacy that we do throughout this country, and the type of library shouldn't matter. What we commonly practice is advocacy that involves elected officials, whether they're at the local, the state, or the national level. This legislative advocacy is usually done by library administrators, by trustees, by our friends group, by state association, legislative committees, and by grassroots advocates like the Spokane Moms. My symbolic trip is concentrating on a different type of advocacy which complements all the other advocacy efforts that we have been doing and will continue to do. And trust me when I say there's enough room to do every kind and every level of advocacy for our libraries. So the advocacy that I'm referring to is frontline, member-driven advocacy designed to engage and empower the librarians and other library staff to advocate from the front lines of our libraries. Implicit in advocacy is pleading the cause for something. Sometimes it's legislation, sometimes it's a specific action. The type of advocacy that I envision for the frontline folks is very simple. You know, we probably have about 50,000 ALA members who work somewhere on the front lines in our libraries. So my goal, along with my working group, is to develop the tools and the training to prepare them to articulate to their respective users, patrons, and communities the value for their specific libraries and their value as library workers. So just imagine the effect that we would have in getting our message out. Communication theory says that for every person receiving a message, that person has the potential to tell 7 other people. So the sharing of that message grows exponentially. So my vision for the journey is as simple as that. Every voice makes a difference. And there's no better way to learn how valuable the library is to someone than to hear it directly. Library staff working on the front lines associate the term library advocacy with library administration, library administrators, and legislation. They don't see advocacy as part of their jobs, and quite frankly, it appears to me that hardly anybody sees it as part of their job. Just think how powerful it would be if we prepare many more of the people working in our libraries, people who have direct access to our users and direct access to their friends, their relatives, and their neighbors. Think how powerful it would be if we prepared them to tell all the folks why their libraries are valuable to their communities. That's what frontline advocacy is all about. Empowering our staffs and preparing them to advocate at their comfort level. And it doesn't matter if service communities are city or counties, colleges or universities, school districts, government agencies, or corporations. I characterize all types of libraries as the heart of their respective communities. Our libraries provide the information that pump life into our communities. Michael's an excellent example of that. That information helps our users develop abilities such as life coping skills, academic skills, lifelong learning skills, and the list could go on. If we really believe the vital role our libraries play in our respective communities, then we should all be prepared to articulate the value of those libraries. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this speech, the journey we are taking from Chicago to LA includes literacy advocacy. And by literacy, I'm talking about reading, information literacy, digital literacy, financial literacy, cultural literacy. Libraries play a vital role in making our nation literate. And a literate nation is the foundation of our democracy. But tonight I'm going to concentrate on reading or basic literacy skills, because this includes adults who lack basic literacy skills, which ranges from being unable to read and understand any written information in English to being able to locate easily identifiable information in short text, but nothing more. The National Assessment of Adult Literacy tells us that at least 90 million adults in the U.S. read at or below basic literacy levels. And the current data shows that overall, 30% of high school students leave school without a diploma. And this includes 50% of our African American and our Latino communities. And I maintain that one major reason for this situation is the lack of basic literacy skills. The most recent literacy skills data available demonstrated that 44% of Latinos in this country fall below the basic literacy skills level. 24% of African Americans fall below the basic literacy skill level. 14% of our Asian Pacific Islanders fall below that level. And you compare this to only 7% of non-minorities who fall below the basic literacy skills level. And we see these adults and teens who have the same information needs and the same interests as those who can read well and those who have degrees. And we see them every day in our libraries.